Last July, the state stepped in and seized a herd of abused and mistreated horses from a farm in Springvale. The neglected 20, as they were called, were taken to the Maine State Society for the Protection of Animals, or MSSPA, in Windham.
207 videographer Kirk Craddy and I were at the farm when they arrived, and we followed their progress through the fall. A year later, most of the 20 horses have been adopted, although a few were in such bad shape that they had to be euthanized. The last 3 of this herd are wild Mustangs, and the next chapter in their story has captured the attention of horse lovers across the country. It is what set them apart on that July afternoon, while the other horses still stirred up from the unease of the seizure.
I think I want to put her in the back.
Stepped hesitantly off. These 3 shot off the trailer like bullets.
Yeah.
Wild Mustangs not used to humans, not wanting to be confined. The seizure was unprecedented in the 150-year history of this organization. 20 horses needing food, water, extensive medical care, and patient, loving attention to recover from months of neglect. But the Mustangs, Annie, Silver, and Phoebe, would present a different sort of challenge.
These 3 Mustangs, we have spent a lot of time with them, evaluating them, getting to know them, trying to understand their needs, because they're really fundamentally different from domestic horses. They're really wild animals because they were captured as adult wild animals.
Madison Donahue's dealt with plenty of horses, but never wild horses. Phoebe was especially challenging.
I went out there kind of 5 days in a row, and every day I was able to halter her, but it took me longer and longer, and she kind of got more aggressive about being haltered. I mean, she's kind of really made it clear that she doesn't want to be handled. And so you can go up to her, you can pet her on both sides. She's not afraid of humans, but I think she's afraid of what humans may do to her.
It became clear that these horses would likely not find the usual adoptive homes that the MSSPA seeks for every horse in its care.
They really belong in the wild. And so we started looking for a wild horse sanctuary somewhere in the country that would receive them and return them to the life they deserve.
That search led them here, to the 9,000-acre Skydog Ranch and Sanctuary in Bend, Oregon. Madison reached out to Skydog to see if these 3 Maine Mustangs could make their home 3,000 miles away. Skydog said yes.
It was amazing to see them pop up again in an email and see their faces and their original posts, and I remembered them.
Skydog's mission is to rescue at-risk Mustangs and return them to the wild.
Here, we've got Blue Zeus and Iris just grazing on the top of this mountain.
Claire Staples follows Mustang sales and adoptions online, keeping track of these horses, which many regard as part of American history.
Really, it's the only horse breed in the world that is defined essentially by the land that they were born on. So Mustang is essentially the word originally for a feral horse, a wild horse. So the space that we have really allows those horses to be rewilded and go back to their wild selves and really not be bothered very much with humans if they don't want to.
These 3 Mustangs, originally from Idaho, were sold to the Springvale farm in 2021. They spent about 4 or 5 months there before the state brought them to the MSSPA.
I followed the internet adoption that these 3 horses were on, and I always tend to look at the seniors because we have a lot more concern for those, because they're a lot harder to transition into domestic life. And a lot of people might take on a 20-year-old Mustang and then realize they are very out of their depth in terms of trying to train them or domesticate them.
In the wild horse world, it's not that uncommon for wild horses to be purchased or adopted by people who are well-intentioned, but ultimately are not able to provide these horses with what they need, or the horses themselves may not be suitable for domestication.
And so, detailed plans began to transport these 3 Mustangs, bringing their journey from Idaho to Maine and back to Oregon, full circle, Skydog Ranch was happy to partner in this effort.
This organization has stepped up in such an incredible way for these horses in really seeing through, for all of those horses that were rescued, find exactly the right fit for each of them.
And Claire, as she has done so many times before, prepared to welcome these new Mustangs.
It is wonderful, and it never gets old. I don't think I've ever released a horse back into the wild without being very emotional.
Now, the MSSPA announced this plan a few weeks ago and began making arrangements to ship these horses cross-country.
When we return, we will follow along on that journey. Back to our story now. This month, it was time for the Mustangs to embark on their full circle journey.
We were back at the farm on River Road in Windham the morning of the departure. When you are caring for a barn full of horses, the days always start early. This early morning is particularly meaningful. This day will mark the end of nearly a year of what the MSSPA does best, bringing the neglected 20 and all the other horses in their care back to health, having said a gentle farewell to the horses that were too compromised to save.
So I'm going to fill them about 2:30.
Before these Mustangs can take to the road, there are last-minute tasks to be done. Paperwork to be checked, a peek inside the trailer where they'll live for the next 5 or 6 days.
My main question is, where do you want the buckets at?
It is a complicated and expensive undertaking to ship these horses cross-country, and it is the farthest away that Mustangs have ever traveled.
Such a good boy.
To join the other Mustangs at Skydog Ranch. Once loaded, they will stay on the trailer for the duration of the trip, and Maddie Donahue will travel behind the trailer to tend to the horses each day.
These horses have grown to know me and trust me over the past year, that it's helpful for them to have kind of a familiar face with them. And so I'm very comfortable going in and kind of taking care of them.
Each night, Maddie updates the followers with news from the day.
It's Madison reporting from the road.
Each day they travel 600 or 700 miles, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Utah. As they rack up the miles, more and more followers tune in to witness their progress.
So it was, I'll say, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as people say, to get to this. It's something I have never experienced. I have never dealt with, wild feral Mustangs before. So every single moment I was with these horses was a very big learning experience for me. And
the Mustangs are traveling in a truck that has them in full-size stalls. They can move about, have access to hay and water, even lie down to rest. It's equipped with closed-circuit cameras, and it is clear that the horses are calm and comfortable and oblivious to the attention that is being paid to them.
The wild horse is such a symbol of the American West. It is a beautiful thing to be able to do, I have to say. It's just beautiful.
Here come some horses to say hi. And this is usually what happens. They'll all run together now.
This is the work that Claire Staples now does every day, receiving wild Mustangs, reconnecting them to their herds, and making sure they live out their days safe and protected in the wild.
Maybe there's a part of all people, that their spirit wants to be wild and free. And I think through these wild horses, we get to live vicariously a little bit through them to be rewilded and be free, which is such a basic value of America.
And finally, after 5 long days on the road, the safe arrival of the 3 main Mustangs and their first hesitant steps off the trailer and into a pen where they can be assessed. Over the last 18 months, these horses have left the only home they ever knew to travel across the country to a place where they were neglected and forgotten. When their journey took them to the MSSPA, little did anyone know that this day would come. Skydog Ranch gives its new family members a few days to settle in, and then, as thousands of followers and horse lovers across the country had hoped,
there they go. Oh my goodness. Look at that.
Phoebe, Annie, and Silver returned to their home on the range.
I think you're gonna love it here.
While it is very moving emotionally, I have to say too, it is also incredibly satisfying to have the opportunity to work with the MSSPA and fashion the right outcome for each and every horse that's here. These are certainly unusual, and in the 15 years I've been here, we've never had horses quite like this, and I never would have imagined that we would be partnering with such a wonderful facility all the way to Oregon. The logistics of it are challenging, the emotions of it are sometimes overwhelming, but the outcome is the right one.
Skydog Ranch is home to about 200 Mustangs and 50 wild burros. Now, when Mustangs are in the wild, they form families and stay in those small groups on the range. Skydog already had a Phoebe, so the main Phoebe has been renamed Sienna, and the main three will soon be introduced to a small herd on the ranch. We will include more information in the 207 section of our website and app if you would like to learn more about the work of the MSSPA or Skydog Ranch, or if you'd like to know how you can follow along with the three main Mustangs as they settle into their new life at Skydog, or if you'd like to sign up to just go to Skydog.
I was going to say, I want to go to Skydog. I mean, there is something truly thrilling about seeing the horses just run wild in that setting.
It is so beautiful, and they post a lot of content all the time of this glorious vistas and these beautiful horses, so it's a lovely, lovely farm to follow.
What a great outcome.